the winds on Epsilon. 7 were frozen and howled across the empty land like the screams of 1,000 stars dying. Vexera moved through the ice fields like a predator that was born to hunt. Her 6 legs moved her quietly over the crusted snow, leaving almost no trace of her passing. The 2 moons in the sky cast long shadows that danced and twisted in the never-ending twilight of this empty world. She was from Kryvax, Top, one of the best hunters her empire had ever made. The moonlight made her exoskeleton shine a deep purple, and was covered in the ceremonial scars of 43 successful hunts. 43 trophies from 17 different kinds of animals found in the known galaxy. Each one added to her legend and her standing among her people. This would be number 44 tonight. The thermal signature on her wrist scanner kept pulsing. Red. Close. Very close now. Vexera let herself feel good for a moment. This hunt was almost too easy. 3 days ago, a surprise ice storm separated the person from his research team. His friends looked for him for 2 days before giving up, thinking he had died in the freezing temperatures. They had just left the moon a few hours ago. But Vexera knew better. She had been following him since the storm hit. She had to admit that people were smart and good at finding things. This one had lived longer than she thought it would. Still, staying alive only put off the inevitable. People, the newest species to show up on the galactic stage. The Council had been watching them for cycles, trying to decide whether to reach out to them or let them fall apart on their own because of their primitive chaos. They weren't very strong for a galaxy. There are no scales, claws, venom, or armor in nature. Their bones broke very easily. Their skin ripped like paper. There was nothing special about their senses. Humans seemed almost silly weak in a galaxy full of top predators and warrior races. That made them the perfect prey. Vexera had picked this target very carefully. A single researcher, cut off from his group, is stuck on a hostile moon. It was like a book. Clean. Works well. The kind of hunt that would keep her reputation up, without too much work. After the Vorten chieftain last month, she had earned a break. That was a real fight. 3 broken ribs and a broken jaw are the results. This person would be a nice change of pace. The scanner said she was now less than 50 meters from the target. She crouched down low, her instincts as a hunter taking over. She could see the faint orange glow of a thermal tent through the snow that was falling. A normal emergency shelter for people. It would keep them warm enough to live, but it wouldn't keep her out. Vexera looked at her plasma blade. The weapon came to life with a soft blue glow and a hum. Its edge could cut through reinforced titanium like butter. There would be no problem with the tent. She had danced this way many times before. Cut through the door. Get going. The prey would scramble back, usually reaching for the closest weapon they could find. They would either fight or beg. Sometimes both. It never mattered. The result was always the same. She walked slowly toward the tent, taking in these last few moments. The thrill of waiting for a kill was almost as good as the kill itself. Soon, she would return to the Empire with proof that she had won. Along with all the other trophies, the humans' identification tags would hang in her trophy room. Her status would stay the same for another cycle. The wind stopped for a moment, as if the moon itself was holding its breath. Vexera held her sword high. The plasma edge crackled with energy, and the shadows it made on the ice danced. She quickly brought it down and cut through the flap at the entrance to the tent. The material split like silk. She stepped inside with her knife ready, and all 4 of her eyes adjusted to the light inside. Her muscles were ready to strike at the first sign of movement. This was the time. The moment when the prey knew they were going to die. The time when their eyes got big with fear. The moment they realized that all their hard work had been for nothing. Vexera was ready to scream. She was ready for gunfire. She was ready to race to the back of the tent in a panic. She had seen every possible response 100 times before. What really happened was not what she was ready for. The person looked up from a small stove and smiled. A real smile, not the showing of teeth that some animals did before they attacked. No look of fear. He smiled like he'd just seen an old friend at the market. He said with a smile, "Oh, hey there," as if a 7-foot-tall alien warrior hadn't just cut through his tent with a plasma weapon. You must be really cold out there. Come on in. I'm making soup. Vexera didn't move at all. Her blade crackled in her hand, still full of deadly energy. Her 4 eyes blinked one after the other, which is a sign of total confusion in Kravaxian culture. She had hunted for years, on dozens of worlds and against thousands of prey, but nothing like this had ever happened. Not even close. The person was asking her to come in, for soup. Her combat training told her loud and clear that this was a trick, some kind of distraction before he showed off a secret weapon or set off a trap. But her sensors didn't pick up anything. There were no energy signatures except for the tiny heating element in his stove. No weapons are close by. There was no backup hiding in the corners of the small tent. The only thing, there was a person sitting cross-legged on an insulated mat and stirring something in a small pot. "Aye," Vexera began, but then stopped. She had never been at a loss for words before. "I'm here to kill me, right?" the person said, not even looking up from what they were cooking. "Yeah, I figured that out when you came with a sword that glowed. It's pretty clear what they meant." He grabbed a second metal cup and began to pour hot liquid into it. "But you chose a terrible night for it. The wind out there must be blowing at minus 60 degrees by now. Really, come in and close the flap. You're letting all the warmth out." Vexera's mandibles clicked together in confusion. This was not right. Everything about this was wrong. Prey didn't act this way. They ran away. They got into a fight. They begged. They definitely didn't give their killers food and drink and then complain about drafts. "You're not scared," she said. It wasn't a question. It was something she saw that didn't make sense to her predator brain. The person shrugged and finally looked up at her. His eyes were a strange blue-green color, and they were calm and clear. "Wow, I'm scared," he said in a calm voice. "Pretty sure my heart is beating about 150 times a minute right now. But fear doesn't change the truth, does it?" He pointed the cup at her with his hand. "You are clearly a pro. Based on those markings, an elite hunter. I'm dead if you want me to be. It could happen right now, in 5 minutes, or in an hour. It's really up to you when it happens. Not me." He put the second cup down on the mat in front of him. "Since I'm probably going to die anyway, I thought, why not be polite about it? My mom taught me to be polite, no matter what. This is definitely strange." He stopped and looked at her more closely. "Also, and I mean this with all due respect, you look awful. When was the last time you had a hot meal?" Vexera saw that her sword was still on, sending blue light into the tent. It was time for her to strike, stop this strange conversation, and finish her hunt. But something made her stop. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe the shock of the situation had messed up her timing. She said slowly and carefully, "You know I'm here to take your life as a trophy. Do you get this?" "Yes," the person said, pulling out what looked like a protein bar from their bag. "I completely understand. The culture of galactic hunters and all that. I did my homework before coming out here." He opened the bar and ate a piece. "But here's the thing. You haven't killed me yet. You could have. It was easy, but you didn't. So either you're play with your food, which seems like something someone of your obvious skill level shouldn't do, or you're at least a little bit curious about why I'm not acting like you thought I would." He was correct. Vexera hated that he was right, but he was completely right. She wanted to know. Very, very curious in a way that had nothing to do with hunting. "Sit," the person said again, pushing the soup cup a little bit toward her side of the tent. "Look, you can kill me just as easily in 5 minutes as you can right now. The soup is made with vegetables. Before I left Earth, I looked in the xenobiology database. It should be safe for Kravaxian stomachs. No proteins that would mess with your body." He had looked into her kind. This person had learned what foods would be safe for the species he might meet before coming to this moon. Who did that? What kind of prey looked at their possible predators so closely? "Why?" Vexera asked. The question came out harsher than she meant it to, but the person didn't flinch. "Why would I give you soup?" He tilted his head and thought about it. "Because you're a living thing that has been in that frozen hellscape for who knows how long. Even though we're supposed to be enemies, we're both just people trying to get through the night. Because, just maybe, we can talk this over like grown-ups instead of acting out a script from the Stone Age about predators and prey." He picked up his cup and took a sip, grimacing at the heat. Also, my grandmother always said that sharing a meal made problems better. Most of the time, she was right about things like that. The wind outside howled again, making the walls of the tent shake. Inside, the temperature was comfortable, almost nice compared to the deadly cold outside. Vexera looked at the soup, then at the person, and then back at her knife. Every instinct told her to finish the hunt. It was required by every tradition of her people. But something else, something she couldn't quite put her finger on, made her slowly lower her weapon. The blade was still ready to strike at any moment, but she walked toward the mat. "You're crazy," she said. The person smiled. "Yes, I hear that a lot." Vexera laid down on the mat, and her 6 legs folded under her in a way that let her move quickly. The blade was still in her main hand, and its blue glow made strange shadows on the walls of the tent. She wasn't at ease. She wasn't at ease. Every part of her body screamed that this was wrong, and that she was breaking rules that had been in place for thousands of years in Kravaxian culture. But she still sat down. The person pushed the cup across the mat toward her. The steam that came off the liquid smelled surprisingly good. Vexera's sensors looked at it on their own. Plant-based compounds. Salt. A type of grain. No poison. Nothing that would hurt her biology. He had been honest about that. "How long did you spend looking into the dietary needs of Kravaxians?" she asked, still not touching the cup. The person thought for a second, maybe 3 or 4 hours before the mission started. "I looked into all the main species in this area. Thought it would be smart to know who I might meet." He drank some more of his own soup. "I never thought I'd use that information to have dinner with someone sent to kill me, but life is full of surprises." Vexera looked at him. "Why did you spend hours learning about species you might never meet?" "Why not?" he said simply. "Never waste knowledge. And it seemed like the right thing to do, you know? If I'm going to be out here studying life on other planets, I should at least be able to understand the smart life too. It would be very rude to think that everyone else is like humans." She didn't know what it meant for prey to respect her. In Kravaxian culture, the strong took from the weak. That was how things were supposed to be. That was how things worked in the universe. But this weak, vulnerable person sat in front of her and talked about research and respect as if they were the most normal things in the world. She took the cup. It felt warm against her chitinous fingers. After being outside in the freezing dark for hours, the heat felt good. She slowly and carefully brought it to her mouth and took a small sip. It was nice. Not complicated, but good. The warmth spread through her body, and she felt some of the cold leave her body. She didn't know how tired the hunt had made her. After a moment, Vexera said, "You said I looked terrible." "You were right. For 3 days with little sleep, I have been following you." The person's eyebrows went up. 3 days? In this weather? Without a good place to stay? He shook his head. "That's really impressive. Most species would have died or given up by now. Kravaxians hunt. We will last." "Yes, but there's enduring and then there's being dumb about it," he said. "Even the best hunter needs to eat and sleep. If you're too tired to get home after catching your prey, what's the point?" Vexera didn't know what to say. She had really been pushing herself too hard. Maybe it's pride. The need to finish the hunt quickly and well. But he was correct. She had been running on fumes for the last day, pushing her body forward with all her strength. She said, "You are not what I thought you would be." "What did you think would happen?" "Fear, panic, maybe anger. Definitely not hospitality." The person leaned back against his pack and held his cup with both hands. "Do you want to know something funny? I was scared when I found out 2 days ago that someone was following me. I'm so scared right now. I've never fought in a war. I've never even been in a real fight. I'm not a soldier. I'm a biologist." "Then why not run? Why not try to get away?" He asked in a reasonable way. "Where would I go?" "My ship left. It will be 3 more weeks until the next supply run. There are more than 900,000 square kilometers of frozen wasteland on this moon. There was no place for me to go. And since you found me so easily, running would have just made me tired." He drank more soup. "I thought about it. I really thought about it. And I realized that if I was going to die anyway, I wanted to die as a person I was proud of, Not begging, not crying, just being a good person. Being human in the best way I know how. By giving soup to your killer, he gently corrected. By giving soup to another living thing that is cold and tired. Yes, you're here to kill me, but you're also a human being. It's possible for both of those things to be true at the same time. Something changed inside Vexera. It was hard to deal with, like a piece of armor that didn't quite fit anymore. People in my culture would see that kind of thinking as weak. Maybe, the person said, or maybe it's a different kind of strength. It takes a lot more guts to be nice when you're scared than it does to fight or run. They both drank their soup in silence for a moment. The wind kept howling outside. Inside the little tent, they had found warmth in a strange kind of peace that Vexera said out of the blue. Tell me about your research. She didn't know why she asked. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe they just want to put off the inevitable for a little longer. The person's face lit up right away. Really? You really want to know? He started to explain about extremophile microorganisms, which are bacteria that can live in the most hostile environments. He moved his hands around a lot while he talked, making gestures. He pulled up information on a small tablet that showed her tiny pictures and chemical formulas. Vexera was listening, not just waiting for a chance to attack, but really listening. The research was very interesting. These tiny organisms could live in temperatures that would kill most other living things. They could break down minerals and chemicals that were harmful to other species. They could lead to big changes in medicine, farming, and even terraforming. She said, these organisms could help with food shortages. Exactly. The person's excitement was contagious. That's what I've been trying to show. We could grow crops in places that are now uninhabitable if we could use their metabolic processes. We could feed billions. Even Kravaxians, Vexera said in a low voice. The person stopped and looked at her closely. Yes, Kravaxians are one of them. For decades, your empires had trouble getting food to your outer colonies, right? This study might help with that. How did he know about the problems in the Kravaxian colony? People didn't know that information. She looked at him with a new understanding. This person had done more than just look into what people need to eat. He had learned everything there was to know about her civilization, what they're good at, their flaws, what they need. You knew someone might come for you, she said. You got ready for this. The person shrugged. Yes, I got ready for the chance of first contact. I didn't know if it would be friendly or not, but I wanted to be ready for either. Thought that if I had something useful to give, it might matter. It had been hours. Vexera suddenly realized that she had been sitting here talking to her prey for almost 3 hours. Her sword was still sharp, but it was now resting on the mat next to her instead of being ready to strike. They had talked about philosophy, biology, and culture. The person had asked questions about Kravaxian society out of real interest, not fear. He was taking her weapons away, not with weapons or tricks, but with basic human decency and smart talk. Her prey was talking to her, and for some reason, it was working. Somehow, the conversation had changed. Vexera wasn't sure when it happened, but she started talking about things she had never talked about with anyone else before. The codes of honor for her people, the complicated social hierarchy that ruled Kravaxian society, the pressure that came with being a top hunter. The person said slowly, "So you have to kill me. Try to understand. Not because I've done anything to you, but because not killing me would hurt your reputation in your society." "Yes," Vexera said. "I claimed this hunt. I told the hunting council what I wanted to do. If I come back without proof that I killed something, I lose status. Other hunters will doubt my ability. My honor will go down." "That sounds tiring," the person said honestly. Vexera's mandibles clicked, which could have been a sign of amusement. "You don't know. It's a fight to stay in the same place every cycle, to show that you are still good enough, to show you haven't gotten weak or soft. And what if you do become weak? Or make up your mind that you don't want to hunt anymore? Then you fall. You turn into nothing. Your last victory is what makes you valuable in Kravaxian culture." She stopped and looked down at her claws. "It is how things have always been." For a moment, the person was quiet and looked deep in thought. Then he leaned forward, and his eyes had a look of intensity that they hadn't had before. But what if you brought back something better than a trophy? A trophy is the best thing there is. A trophy shows that you are the best. Of skill. Is it really? The person put down his empty cup and picked up his tablet. His fingers moved quickly over the screen, opening files and information. A trophy shows you can kill. That's all. It shows that you are physically capable. But what if you showed something else that was more useful? What if you could show that you're not only strong, but also smart? Not just a hunter, but a leader? Vexera felt her focus getting sharper. Tell me more. Okay, check this out. He turned the tablet toward her, so she could see complicated molecular structures and growth projections. These microbes that I've been looking at, they're not only interesting from a scientific point of view, they're almost revolutionary. You have 17 outer colonies in your empire that are having trouble growing food, right? The soil is wrong, the temperatures are too high, and traditional farming methods aren't working. How do you know the exact number of colonies that are having trouble? Vexera asked, mostly public records. Your empire isn't as secret as it thinks it is. He waved that off as unimportant, saying, plus some educated guessing based on patterns of territorial expansion. The point is that these organisms could fix that problem. They break down minerals in ways that make the soil better. They can live in very hot and very cold weather. They could make land that wasn't good for farming into land that was. He opened another screen that showed estimates of crop yields and population growth. If your agricultural scientists could see this research, they could feed millions of Cravaxians who are now relying on expensive food shipments from the homeworld. Do you know what that means? That's not just a big step forward in science. That's a game changer in politics. Vexera looked at the information. Her mind, which was used to thinking strategically, started to do math. Giving the outer colonies food independence would change the balance of power in the empire. It would weaken the homeworld's power, but it would also make the empire stronger as a whole. Colonies that could grow their own food were able to give more resources to other projects. Growth, defense, study. You're saying this research is worth more than a trophy, she said slowly. The person said, this research is worth more than 100 trophies. Take a moment to think about it. You go back with my ID tags. You're hunter number whatever, and you've killed 44. Sure, that's impressive. You keep your status for another cycle. But what happens next? You have to go hunting again. And again. It never ends. He leaned back and watched her closely. But what if you went back as a Cravaxian who first met people? The person who got their hands on cutting-edge farming tools? The one who might have saved millions of your people from not having enough food? That's not just keeping things the same. That's building a legacy. First contact, Vexera said again. The words felt weird in her mouth. Yes, give it some thought. As you said, humans are new to the galactic stage. We're weak and open to attack, and we don't have a lot of military strength to offer. But we want to know. We are imaginative. We are very good at coming up with answers to problems that seem impossible. And right now we're looking for friends. For people who trade with each other. For friends in a galaxy that looks like it doesn't like them very much. The person opened another file, this one showing what humans can do with technology. We have medical methods that your empire hasn't come up with yet. We have social structures that could give us new ideas about how to run things. We have art, music, and books that could make Cravaxian culture better. And yes, we have scientific studies like this that could help your people with real problems. Vexera said, you are suggesting a treaty. Between your kind and mine. He corrected himself and said, I'm suggesting the possibility of one. I'm only a researcher. I can't make deals on treaties. But I can connect you with people who do. I could help our governments talk to each other. I could help start a conversation that could help both of our people. He looked her straight in the eye. Kill me and get a trophy. You could also choose to look at the bigger picture. You could be the Cravaxian who saw a human and thought they could be useful instead of food. You might be the one who brought back something that really matters. Vexera felt like her whole world was falling apart. This small, weak person who should have been dead hours ago was making her question everything she'd been taught about power, strength, and the way things are supposed to be. She said, "The council would never agree to this," but she wasn't sure she believed it even as she said it. Why not? Are they dumb? Are they so set in their ways that they can't see a chance when it comes up? The person shook their head. "I don't think that's true. I know a lot about the history of Cravaxia. Your people didn't build an empire by being rigid. You changed. You learned. You took advantage of chances. That was not the same. Was it? Or is this the first time you've been given a chance that looks different from what you thought it would?" He pointed between them. "You came here to kill me. That was your job. But missions change when things change. Any good strategist knows that." He was correct. Vexera hated it, but he was totally right. A plan that was too strict and didn't change when things changed was sure to fail. That was common knowledge among hunters. You followed your prey, but if the weather or terrain changed, or if something unexpected happened, you changed your plans. You changed. This person was an unexpected factor. The research was an unanticipated factor. The possibility of an alliance between their species was an unanticipated factor. And maybe, just maybe, coming back with a treaty was better than coming back with trophy. Vexera looked at the data that was scrolling across the tablet screen. Numbers, predictions, and chemical equations. Every piece of news was another crack in the base of everything she had built her life on. Strength, dominance, and the ability to hunt and kill had defined her whole life. She was elite because she could kill people quickly and without mercy. But this person was showing her a different kind of strength. He wasn't physically strong. He didn't have any natural weapons, armor, or better senses. He should have been worthless by every standard her culture held dear. Simple prey, not worth remembering. But there he was, sitting there, having completely destroyed her confidence with just words and ideas. He didn't fight her. He hadn't tried to take control of her. He had just spoken, thoughtful, gave equal amounts of kindness and information. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked better than any weapon. People didn't fight with claws. They fought with their brains, with kindness that was stronger than any sword, with the nerve to offer friendship to someone who was sent to kill them, with research and planning, and the simple belief that knowledge was more powerful than violence. It was scary. It was a big deal. It was great. Vexera's hand went to her sword. The weapon had been humming softly the whole time, reminding her of her mission, her purpose, and who she was. It took her a long time to look at it. In the tense dim light, the blue plasma edge flickered. This blade had killed 43 people. 43 trophies won in the name of status and honor. What would 44 show that 43 hadn't already shown? What would another dead person add to her legacy besides another mark in an endless list? She pushed the button to turn it off. The hum of the blade stopped right away, and the plasma edge disappeared. The sudden quiet was deep, as if the whole universe was holding its breath to see what would happen next. "You are either the bravest or the dumbest thing I've ever seen," Vexera said in a low voice. The person smiled. That odd, warm look that showed teeth without being scary. He said, "Probably both. My co-workers back home say that to me a lot. Usually right before I do something they think is crazy." To Vexera said, "This is crazy. All of this. What you are suggesting. What I'm thinking about. It goes against what I know." The person agreed. "Yeah, but crazy ideas are worth trying sometimes. Sometimes you miss out on something better by following the rules just because they are rules." Vexera put the sword down on the mat between them. It seemed to mean something. A weapon put down. A decision has been made. I can't go back if I do this. My people will judge me. A lot of people will say I'm weak, corrupted, a failure. The person said, "Maybe, or maybe some people will call you a visionary, a trailblazer, the one who could see options that others were too scared or too set in their ways to think of. You are way too hopeful for someone who almost died tonight. The part about almost dying hasn't happened yet, so I'm going to stay positive." He held out his hand in that weird way that people greet each other. "By the way, my name is Tyler Bennett. I thought that if we were going to change the course of galactic history together, we should at least know each other's names." Vexera looked at the hand that was held out to her. In Cravaxian culture, reaching out to touch someone else's body was either a sign of deep trust or a sign that you were about to fight. The person was showing both weakness and friendship with one gesture. She reached out with her main claw and carefully grabbed his hand. I am Vexera from the Crimson Peaks hunting clan, elite tracker of the Cravaxian Empire. She stopped, and it looks like I'm the first of my kind to spare a human. Tyler's smile got bigger. Making history. We should probably focus on not dying of cold before we make that history official. This tent won't last 3 more weeks until the next ship comes. He was right about that. The tent was made to be a short-term emergency shelter, not a long-term home. They would have to save energy, limit their food supply, and get through the freezing cold of Epsilon 7's night cycle. It wouldn't be easy, but Vexera had lived for 3 days in this frozen wasteland while hunting. Tyler had been alone for 4 days after being separated from his team. They had resources and knowledge that might be enough when they worked together. We need a plan, Vexera said, her strategic mind already coming up with ideas. Improvements to the shelter, limiting food, a plan for how to talk to people when help arrives. Tyler said, "This is why I'm glad you didn't kill me. You are much better at planning for survival than I am. I was mostly just trying to stay calm and hope for the best." They worked together for the next 3 weeks. Vexera taught Tyler how to hunt in the cold by showing him how to follow and catch the small creatures that live in the ice and can help them with their food. Tyler used his scientific knowledge to explain how the local ecosystem worked in ways that made it easier to stay alive. They used ice blocks to make the tent stronger, which Tyler had read about but never tried. They set up rules for how to talk to each other when the rescue ship got there. They had a conversation. They talked for hours about their cultures, their hopes, and their fears. Vexera learned about Earth, how different people are, and the thousands of ways people have organized themselves and made sense of the world. Tyler learned about the Cravaxian Empire's complicated past, its warrior culture, and how status and honor affected every part of life. And they slowly and carefully put together a proposal, a formal way for their species to meet for the first time. Tyler gave the human side of what his government would want and need. Vexera told the Cravaxian Council what they could agree on. They agreed on the benefits of working together instead of fighting, their shared scientific curiosity, and the fact that working together is better than fighting. It wasn't Tyler's research team that came when the rescue ship finally got there. The Cravaxian diplomatic ship was there because Vexera had sent a coded message explaining what was going on. She had taken a chance that the council would be interested enough to send people instead of just telling her to come back for judgment. She took a chance and won. 3 weeks after their first meeting in the tent, Vexera was in the Grand Council chamber on the homeworld of the Cravaxians. The Empire's most powerful people were all in the huge room, leaders of the military, leaders in politics, the best hunters of their time. Everyone was looking at her with faces that showed everything from interest to anger. Tyler Bennett stood next to her, looking small and weak but with quiet dignity. The person who should have been a trophy, the person who had become something much more important. "Honored Council," Vexera said, and her voice echoed through the room. "I am not a hunter with a trophy in front of you. I am a representative asking for an alliance." I introduced Tyler Bennett, a researcher and scientist from Earth who has information that could change our outer colonies, who lets our species be friends with each other, who has shown me that strength can come in many forms. She could feel the pressure of judgment on her. This was a time. The future of Cravaxian human relations and her own life were both at stake. Tyler stepped up and started to talk. Even though dozens of alien eyes were on him, his voice was steady. He talked about the research, the possible benefits, and how humans want to make peaceful contact with other intelligent species. He was well-spoken, ready, and completely unafraid. Vexera looked at him and understood something deep. She had gone into that tent as a hunter, and her only skill was killing. She had left it as a person she never thought she could be, a friend, a buddy, a link between two species that might have only seen each other as threats or food. The person had done more than just live. He had given her a choice that she didn't know she had. And by making that choice, she learned that there were accomplishments that were bigger than any hunt and legacies that would last longer than any trophy.